Before we start the meeting, everyone, this is Cindy Boudreau, is our new planning clerk, replaced Alec Newton, and will be your secretary. So we need to appoint that so we can do minutes officially and all this.
Okay.
I think we put that as agenda item 3.
Okay. Okay. Good evening. I'd like to call the Board of Adjustment meeting to order for April 17th. Our first order of business is approval of the minutes. Oh, before I start, I'd like to introduce our whatever it's called.
Board.
Yeah, our board.
Brian Baker.
Donna Cook.
Anil Vera.
Kathy Slagle.
Frank Lamia.
Thanks. So our first business is approval of the minutes from our December 19th meeting.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Our next item is the appointment of a Board of Adjustment secretary, and
Boudreau?
with Cindy. Yeah, Cindy. And so do we have a motion to accept?
I so move.
Okay.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Welcome, Cindy.
Okay. Our first item of agenda is BOA 23.01. It's a public hearing to request the owner, Virginia Davis Farr, for a 10.6 variance from the front setback requirements of the property zoned R2, medium-density, single-family residential district, and it's located at 610 North Mobile Street. And staff will give us an update, please.
Just real quick, that was a Scrivener's error. This request is for a 10.5-foot setback. We did put 10.6. That was supposed to be 10 foot 6 inches, which would be 10.5. So this request is for a rear setback. I'm going to jump right in. The property is zoned R2. You can see the triangular shaped lot on the left in the aerial photo. This is at the intersection of North Mobile Street and Pensacola Avenue. When we look at a triangle-shaped lot, a lot has to have a front and a rear always, and it can have one side. So typically, on corner lots, there's a street side setback of 20 feet. But being that there's a front and a rear here, and this is originally platted lot, hasn't been carved off, so that was the original plat of the subdivision. This was the survey we received with a permit where that showed the 20-foot, but when we got looking at it, there's actually a front and a rear setback of 35 feet on both street frontages. North Mobile, being the shortest measurement, is the front, and Pensacola is the rear. And there's our code that shows that. And the requested variance is 10 foot 5 inches to result in a 24-foot setback. And we really don't see a problem with this. It is certainly meets all definitions of a hardship. The shape is, and the remaining buildable area under our current codes. Really, it is 2 lots right now that will be merged. And I'm sorry, the building will have to be removed. I believe that was the plan. And Mike did write this report, so you're going to see me reading some notes here. He wasn't available to be here. But we do recommend approval of this setback as proposed. It would be 10 feet 6 inches or 10.5 feet. The resulting setback, if granted, would be 24.5 feet. Just want to go back here real quick. If this was a street side setback, it would be a 20-foot setback. So they didn't ask for that much. I think it was a happy medium. They asked for what they actually needed to build the home they're looking for. There were also some trees being worked around on the site, so we're in full support of this variance request. And if there's any questions, staff will be able to answer them. I believe the applicants are here as well. And Chris. If you have questions, Mr. Miller's here as well.
Okay, thank you. This time, I'd like if the applicant would like to come up. If you'll state your name for the record, please.
You'll have to bear with me, I lost my voice a couple weeks ago. So my name's Chris Miller, I'm the contractor for the owner,
Okay.
and she's here too if you'd like to talk with her, so.
Anything you'd like to add differently?
Well, right now, there's an existing home that sits over the two lots, and the proposal is to, in order to build us a house that makes sense, we need the extra, lot footage, because it's gonna face North Bayview, the house will face that way. But we couldn't do it with the having a 35, so we're asking for the 24-foot 6 to give enough room to get the home on the property, so it makes sense. That's really all we're doing.
Okay.
Instead of the 20-foot, like he said, we're trying to split the difference and just get what we need to get the house done.
And so this will be a brand-new house being built,
Yeah, it's a new
correct?
construction, yes, sir. The existing house is in pretty bad shape. It's not worth saving. And so it'll be removed, and there'll be two lots that if this is approved, this can be built on, and the other one can be built on. They'll both be new construction.
Okay.
Both lots will be.
Are there any other questions?
Nope.
Why are you only asking, I guess my question is why not ask to go to the 20 feet? What drove the,
We met with planning and zoning, and after looking at the lot, having the house, I guess it was the best option to kind of keep it, the best of both worlds, not to get right on top of that. So, we just went with what we could do. 20 feet would be great if you want to do that, but we just tried to get what we could to get enough to build a house. It's not going to be a large house. It's going to be like a 4.5 bungalow.
okay,
It'll keep in the architecture of Fairhope, the kind of older Fairhope, with a 1.5 story type deal. A little cute kind of cottage, but it's the 20-foot would be great, but we felt like this was a good compromise when we all met together.
And Ron, I can clarify, I think you'll appreciate, there was, one, we wanted that street frontage along Pensacola as a consideration. But on a triangle lot, when you start looking at where fences of 8 foot can be and accessory buildings, things like that, I think this was a good median that accommodated some of those things and doesn't create future problems.
this is going to sound, you just said something that just threw me off, fences. Because this is a rear yard, are they allowed to do an 8-foot fence on the street side, even though we normally only allow? Okay.
Yep. You see the problems with a triangular
Yeah,
lot.
all right.
Obviously, this is not a lot we would create today.
Yeah.
It's been there and that was one of the things we were looking at when you start thinking of all the other codes that we do.
Thank you. You said enough.
Yep.
Thank you. This time, I'd like to open it to the public. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak for or against the project? Okay, we'll close the public portion. And board members, do we have a motion or any discussion?
Make a motion to approve.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we'll take a roll call vote. Ryan?
Aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay. Our second order of business is BOA 23.02. It's a public hearing to consider the request of the applicant, RW LLC, David Ryan, acting on behalf of the owner, FST Magnolia Church LLC. The property is located at 301 Magnolia Street.
Thank you. Put these on so I can see. Okay, so this is for a use not provided for. The proposed project has 7 separate structures, and it's the intent of the applicants, which are here, to have a dedicated 1,200 square foot commercial retail component at the ground floor of the 2 structures that are facing Magnolia Avenue, and I'll show you a site plan in a minute, with 1 residential unit occupying the 2nd and 3rd floor of each structure. And the remaining 5 will not be mixed use per se, they will just be residential. So it's 7 residential units and 2 commercial units that are amongst these 7 separate structures on 1 lot with shared areas under common ownership. And the reason why, all those uses are allowed in B2, in the CBD, all that stuff's fine. It's just, it's kind of unique that not all the buildings are going to be mixed use. So that's why they're here. And there is the uses not provided for in the Article 4. So that's what the aerials.
Michelle,
Oh.
you've seen this?
Yeah, this one's been around.
The third time.
Yeah. It's the first time I've dealt with it, but yeah, you've seen
This is a
it.
different project that doesn't have as many requests attached to it.
Right. So you'll see they did, it looks good. Okay. So that's what it looks like. And Hunter took that, or I don't know if you took that today, or did you, Interwebs took it. Yep. Okay. Yeah, there you go. So here's the site plan. So you can see the mixed uses are the green and blue that are facing Magnolia, and those others towards the back will be all residential. That's what it looks like now. That's just the survey. And so there's several renderings, and I will say the applicants took great strides to preserve the trees and the views and all this stuff, so they can talk more about that. And it's going to have one common ingress, egress. Yep, off Magnolia. So these are actually the real trees, too. They did a cool little thing they can tell you about it. These are the real trees. They took pictures of them and they did this. So, pretty pictures. Okay, so here's your use table that shows all those uses are allowed. It's just a little bit different because not all the buildings are going to be mixed use per se. And so there's your definition. And then this is the criteria that the zoning ordinance tells us to use, because only a variance has a checklist. This one doesn't. So this is use this. And we feel that it meets all of these things. And there's narrative that they supplied, which is in the packet, kind of goes into more detail about that. So we do recommend approval of case BOA 2302 to allow a combination of mixed use, residential, retail, commercial among the 7 structures on one lot with shared, common ownership. So.
If you don't mind, just for the minutes purposes, I want to kind of talk about the uses here. When we first looked at this, there are multiple single-family homes on a single piece of property within this project. It creates in our ordinance a little bit of a problem to say we can have multiple single-family homes on one piece of property, just like most of our residential property can only have one. There was a possibility for these being split up into individual lots, but there was some reasons that I'll explain why we didn't want to do that. But then it gets into a definition of mixed use and what that is. Is it a mixed-use project? Is it a mixed-use building? We've recently amended the zoning ordinance to require the ground floor to have a minimum of 50% commercial space in a mixed-use building. So that didn't fit in a pretty box either in a definition of mixed use. So what we're looking at here is trying, and there's a benefit, I think, to having common ownership of these green space areas. There's been a lot of work to work with the existing trees with a goal of saving all of them. There might be one on Church Street that even our horticulturist is looking at, but really a lot of efforts went in designing around that. Really creates that green space on the corner. So having that in a common ownership instead of one person, I think is a benefit to the city. How that is adjacent to the residential across the street has some benefits. So we wanted to bring this as a use not provided for. We may see something like this in the future that we don't agree with. When we look at all those checklists, does it meet the comprehensive plan? Does it meet the intents of the neighborhood? How does it contribute to the CBD? It may be something that we don't necessarily agree with, but we've kind of vetted everything here, and this will go to Planning Commission for an MOP and site plan ultimately approved by the City Council. So this is kind of the first step. If the board so chooses to approve, we can move this forward to those processes. But it gives us because this is out of the box and not a defined type project, it gives us a little bit of a review procedure if we see something like this in the future. And that's kind of why we're here. It's a little unusual, but I think it meets everything we're trying to accomplish, and happy to see a developer come in and address some of those things. So David is here to speak for the project. If y'all have any questions from him or us, we'll be happy to answer those.
Yeah, if you'll come up and state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. My name is David Ryan, and my address is 7068 Troutbrook Avenue, Fairhope. I grew up in Baldwin County, and I've been back here for a long time now. I came back 27 years ago. It's hard to believe, but anyways, I have enjoyed being back, and I've enjoyed working on a lot of different projects. I mean, I've actually probably worked on more outside of the local area than in the local area over the years, but I've kind of always been fascinated by this piece of property. You know, it's in the central business district. It's on one side, it's facing more commercial activity. On one side, it's facing more, residential uses. It has these beautiful trees, and and Lee Turner, I think's great uncle, that was once his home. And, and so Lee and I've talked about it over the years, and, it was just kind of interesting. And when the opportunity came along, I was really interested in trying to figure out if I could do something that I thought fit the site better than the previously approved plan. And so we just took the previous approved plan and just started fresh. And then one of the things that we wanted to do is to save all of these significant live oaks. There are two that are, one is predominantly in the right of way, just a little bit is on the lot. And then there's another one that's completely in the right of way, and then there's another one that's completely in the lot. And the previous plan was that large one that's in the lot. In fact, can I go to the site plan?
You can
Okay.
arrows going back and forth, and you gotta get. There you go.
Okay. So if you're looking at the site plan, all of the trees are the little darker green dots. And so you see, I'm on the magnolia side now, you see one that is primarily in the right of way. And then you see one there's right there where the sidewalk kind of juts out for the corner. That's all the way in the right of way. And then if you go north of that, you've got another significant, like a 48-inch diameter live oak right there. And of course you've got a few smaller ones along Church here, one of which got pretty significantly damaged by a contractor, I think for the city, was driving a piece of heavy equipment and broke the biggest limb out of the tree, and that tree has some issues, and we're going to certainly work with the city on that. But my immediate thought when I looked at this, like, why would you be cutting the trees down? I mean, I get it, you cut the trees down, you get more density on there, but I just thought that's what makes this property so special. And so I immediately said, we've got to have a way. Even though the CBD does not require green space, why not make a little park, a little green space for people to come and, walk their dog, that sort of stuff, in a little park setting, which, keeps the corner very attractive, saves the trees, and, just to me makes it a really special place. And so I started talking with the city, talking with Hunter and others, and we kind of came up with this plan where the units facing Magnolia, they were a little more of a commercial look. Over 50% of the first floor is commercial, and then it is intended to have 2-story of residential above it, 1 unit above it. And we thought it was important to have a single point of ingress and egress, whereas I think the previous plan had garages facing Church and cars backing out into Church Street and that sort of thing. To me, it didn't look good for the project. It didn't look good for the neighbors, and I didn't think it made the site function very well. So we worked around that, and so we tried to give this side of the property a little more of a a commercial look. And then when you turn the corner on, and you're looking now, you're standing on Church looking at the project. And of course, if you're on the site looking across the street, nice residential across the street. And so we tried to create a look and a feel and a use that we felt complemented the neighborhood. And, in me reading about the CBD and learning more about it, one of the purposes is to allow sort of a transition from more intensive uses to less intensive uses. So if we go back to our site plan, Magnolia already has parallel parking on it, a lot of commercial activity. And you turn the corner on the Church, which, the city, recently did extensive renovations to the road. There is no parking. There's no parallel parking, there's no angle parking, and to me, it made more sense to transition on this single site from, more commercial to more residential. And we felt like there was a significant economies of scale by creating all the common access point on the property, and we thought it was important that all the structures didn't touch. I'm a big believer in having airflow around buildings. In the house where I live now, my front porch is wide open, and you get breezes through there. My back porch is kind of L-shaped, and you don't get near as much airflow, and the mold and mildew and everything on my house on the back porch is twice what it is on the front. And certainly in this climate, that airflow is very important. So that was one of the reasons we did not want to do a single mass building and wanted to have all of these, detached a bit. So it's a challenging site. It's got some topo on it. It's 111 feet above sea level in the top corner. In the bottom corner, it's about 14 feet lower. So there is a transition on the property, and we tried to work with that transition. And you'll see, like for instance on Magnolia, you see we're working with the slope of the hill. We're trying to we put the drive where we thought it worked the best. It's far enough away from the corner. It serves all the different units in the property. We thought it was important to make the drive sort of an attractive focal point, and so we did not, when you go back to the site plan, we did not jam the buildings out to the property lines, because when you do that, where are you going to put your air conditioning units? Where are you going to put your generators? Where are you going to put your your gas meters? Where are you going to put your transformers? And I think a lot of times developers cram everything they can in the site, then they go back and they try to figure all that after the fact. And so we actually recess things around so that we can have all of those items I just mentioned tucked back in behind the houses, out of the way, so that what is visible to the public is something much more attractive than you would typically see in a mixed-use or residential neighborhood. We also, and I'm sorry to keep going back and forth on this, we also doubled the minimum parking requirement. So with the city having a requirement of one parking space per residential unit, we doubled that to 2, and we added a dedicated golf cart parking spot for every unit on the property, because I think everyone in Fairhope except me now has a golf cart, but and you got to have a place for them. And so we tried to plan that. Another thing we did, if you see the circles on the site, that's the tree canopy of all the trees. And so on the side where there are no trees, they have a little more open outdoor courtyard areas there that or be a little bit of a sunnier side of the property as opposed to the shadier side with all the live oaks there. I'm trying to think if I have forgotten anything. I think we've kind of covered it. I've worked with a group who I think very highly of their skill sets and their sensitivity, and they're an architecture group that has an office here in Fairhope and has had one for over 20 years, and so they understand the town and understand the community. So anyways, I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have. And I also, if y'all want them, I made some copies of some packets. Anil, do you want me to hand these out?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
While he's doing that, I do want to add one thing that, it's something we'll have to address, but some amendments to the way we define building height happened a few years ago, and it includes the overall site. Ryan, I think you've been caught by this at Van Antwerp, where you had the 13 feet to build a house in. I think those amendments didn't account for sites like this and projects such as this. So what we are proposing, you can keep that for this site, and I think it works well and meets the intent of all of our ordinances. We're looking at the height of each building and the kind of condoed lot created, so that, as you can see by the models, it falls with the natural slope of the land. So we don't have one side with a 20-foot and another with a 40, 5 or something like that. So that was something, it's a little out of our current regulations. But we have had projects like this where we've taken to either planning commission, city council, and said, this is the way we want to interpret that. So I want y'all to know that on this as well, if you have any comments or anything about that as well.
I have a question, Dave. Oh, go ahead, Kathy.
Go ahead.
Yes,
I've
ma'am.
got a question on this site plan. Could you go back to that?
Yes, ma'am. Just 1 second here. Yes, ma'am. Okay.
All right, so the aqua on unit 1 and 2 is the commercial?
Yes, ma'am. That's
And-
commercial, and then in the blue is area that is, dedicated for the residential. So there'll be no parking for the commercial, within the body of the site. It'll be like a lot of places in downtown Fairhope where people park on the city parking. And so the only parking in the interior of the property is for the residential structures. And so, like, for instance, Unit 1, you see the green or aqua, and then you see over in the corner there's a little piece of blue. And what that is, if I come back over and, whoops, went too far. If you see those on Magnolia, there's an entryway, there's a little entry lobby, and when you go in that entry lobby, you go to the left and you go into the commercial space, which has the large windows on the street side, and then you go right through a door, and there is a staircase where you can get up to the second floor that way. So if people have, guests coming to the home, they can give them the code, they come in, they can just punch the code in the door and go up to the second floor. And then these units will also have elevators in them, so when you come in and park in the back and you're carrying your groceries or, whatever it is you're carrying, you don't want to walk upstairs, you can simply use the elevator.
All right, so if you're looking at unit 3 through 7, those are 3 stories,
Ma'am, the 3 through 7 are two-story.
2 stories.
Yes, ma'am. So if I'll go back to that picture, so that's on Church Street, and so those are all 2-story units.
One residence, 2 stories.
Yes, ma'am, 1 residence.
So 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, or?
These are all three bedrooms, and the one on the far right on Church is larger. I mean, it's probably about 32 or 3,300 square feet, and then the next 2, which are units 4 and 5, they're about 2,800 square feet. And then I don't really have the rendering. The 2 smallest units, if I go back to the site plan, units 6 and 7, those are about 2,300 square feet each. So if you start with units 1 and 2, they're about 3,600 square feet of living. Unit 3 is about 32. 4 and 5 are about 28, and 6 and 7 are about 2,300. We were trying to accommodate, make it a broader appeal, because some people are in the phase of their lives where they want a lot of square footage, and some people are in the phase of their life where they really don't. And so we didn't want to just kind of cookie cutter and rubber stamp a bunch of identical product out here. So we, with all that in mind, and the site constraints and the topography, et cetera, this is the plan we came up with. And it works so that like for instance, Unit 3, you come in on the drive and you park there in the back, and you don't have to go up or down stairs to walk in the unit. So you walk directly into the unit and you're on the first floor of the unit. And by doing that, we had to bring the front up a little bit so that you don't have to go downstairs, because the lot, the entirety of the lot is sloping down. So the houses sit up a little bit so that you have a level floor all the way from the garage through the first floor.
All right, with the architectural features on the front, then the buildings are 40 feet, is that right?
Only the two facing Magnolia, those are 40 feet. Yes, ma'am.
And the others are?
Or they're 35 or under. And, yeah, and those are, you know, we dropped the heights of those, and those are at the heights they are simply because we were trying to deal with the significant slope on the property, because of, we're starting, you know, again, we start up at about 111 feet above sea level, and we're going down as we go down to Church Street.
And the garage doors are double, they're open, they're big enough for 2 cars?
Yes, ma'am. I'll go back to the site plan. So you see each one of those is designed to accommodate 2 vehicles.
The light blue is just a porch area that's covered?
Yes, sir, you're exactly right. The light blue that you see on units 3, 4, and 5 is basically a covered porch.
And then the little tan area just outside of that, that's just, what is that, just paved
That's just
out?
a little outdoor area off your porch that is not covered.
Okay.
So if these people have company, they are parking out on Magnolia's 3 lots, or 3 spaces, or 4 spaces?
Well, there's I don't know
I
the
mean,
exact parking.
They would have to park in the...
Yeah, they're gonna park anywhere else within the CBD. You know, our parking requirements in the CBD, regardless if you have a 1-bedroom unit or 8-bedroom unit, you have to provide 1 parking space.
But,
So,
okay, and they've done that, but there's
They-
no parking on the Church Street at all, is there?
No, ma'am.
No access and no parking from Church Street side.
And there will be 4 on Magnolia? Or is, when they cross off space for the driveway, how many will remain? Parking spaces on Magnolia?
Oh, are you saying, you're asking how many parallel parking spaces will go away because of the entry drive?
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't hear the end of your question.
I said, you're asking me how many of the current parallel parking spaces will go away because of the entry drive?
Right.
Well, you know, there's a drive in that approximate location now to the little house that's being used for an office. And, you know, it's not really, I mean, it's just an old, you know, asphalt drive that's so important. It's not really, you know, wide enough to allow 2 cars to go by. So there's already 1 space there. We'd probably take up 1 more of the parallel spots that currently exist on Magnolia.
Right. So you lose 1 spot, probably.
Probably at most 1, yes.
So the people that are running the commercial part of it, they have no parking designated.
That's right.
If they're renting, they,
Right. Well, like, for instance, we've had some expressions of interest from a commercial, a business that's elsewhere in the CBD, and they have expressed interest in potentially relocating, and they have 0 parking at their current location. I mean, they're on a corner, and they have right-of-way, and there's parallel parking, I mean, much like this, but they, you know, there's no more or less parking here than their current location.
okay, thank you.
Sure. Anil, did you have a question?
You answered it. Thank you. Is this considered a condo complex?
Yeah, we would condominiumize it, and so that we could, you know, this would be a for sale product, and the common areas of this would be really limited to 2 things. It's the common drive, it's sort of a L shape there, and then the common green space on the corner that would be maintained by the HOA and, you know, all the green space on the property be maintained by the HOA. And so
Would the HOA maintain the exterior of the building?
our plan would be that everyone would be responsible to maintain the exterior of their own buildings, but, you know, just like, I mean, you know, in the subdivision I live in, you know, we have requirements that you've got to keep your house painted, and you got to pressure wash it, and you can't go paint it purple, and, you know, that sort of thing. We'd have the same type requirements here.
So the individual houses, the landscaping will be done commonly or individually?
Commonly.
Commonly.
And I'm actually a big fan of that because, I mean, and again, I don't know where everyone lives, but like in my neighborhood, on one side of me, the next door neighbor, I mean, he keeps a beautiful lawn, but I think he mows it 4 times a week. On the other side, we have a couple, and they're sweet as they can be, and the husband had a stroke a couple years ago, and he was doing all the yard work, and they just kind of, so there's constantly a struggle going on with the HOA about them maintaining their lawn, and when it works very nicely, when you have a coordinated one source provider, they show up, they do everything, so you're not hearing blowers blow 4 or 5 days in a row, and they get all the work done and leave. And I personally am a big fan of that.
Okay, Kathy?
I'm getting specific, but when it comes to trash pickup twice a week, where do these people take their trash, and how does the garbage truck get in there and turn around and come out?
Well, I mean, I'm sorry. Well, I mean, the width we have created, you know, the garbage truck can back in there. We've also considered doing just a private garbage service. I mean, we have zero intention of having a row of garbage cans out along Magnolia twice a week. That would be an eyesore, get blown over in the wind and that sort of thing. And we have each one of these units is designed, and I don't have the level of detail on this one, but has a place to put your recycling and your garbage and all that, and have it hidden, but, you know, very available.
So you're saying they're going to take them all out the back onto that road?
They would take them all out on the side of this drive here that's interior to the property. We would not be dragging any cans out and leaving them on Magnolia.
And that is something we will address, you know, in the MOP and site plan reviews. That'll have to be pinpointed. I know we've talked about it already.
Yes.
Fire
That was one of
engines,
the-
if fire engines can get back there?
No, we did speak about that, and we'll vet the answer to that, but I believe there's some in building code, sprinkling, and some other things. There are ways to handle fire protection. So, you know, we have not, as this is the first step, those details, well, I think we've mentioned already, but until we get to those cases, won't press for those answers. But I think they've kind of been accommodated for.
Is there any other questions for the board? Thank you, David.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to open the public portion of the meeting. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak? If you'll come up and state your name and address for us. Thank you.
My name is James Reed, 22757 Echo Rouge Lane. This property is on the northwest corner of the northeast corner of the intersection, and I own the property at the southwest corner of the intersection. And I was interested that David is wrestling with a 14-foot drop from front to back or side to side. I really have the same situation. I have about a 13-foot drop from front to backs, and I really like the way David and his architect have dealt with that drop. It's significant. I've had engineers and architects look at that, and it is difficult to deal with a drop like that. And he really has done a good job. I also think the elevations are very attractive, and I think this will be a very nice project for for the city and for the neighbors. I certainly have no objection to it. I just wanted to come and speak in behalf of the project.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else from the public that would like to speak for or against it?
Hi, I'm Jeannie McCown and 52 North Church Street. So I'm at the top. I have a direct view of the corner, and the fact that he's keeping all the trees is huge. It is a beautiful project, and I think it would be a huge, wonderful addition to Fairhope. So I agree with it.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to speak for or against the project? Okay. We'll close the public portion. Is there any discussion with the board members?
Well, I just want to say David and Russell, y'all did a great job. I think it's a beautiful project. And I think there is the site plan issues that I didn't think we needed to address that they brought up, that I kind of had the same questions: how are we going to handle fire? How are you going to handle garbage? But I know downtown we have these mini garbage trucks that work in the alleys somehow at nighttime, magically, a bunch of elves or something. I'm not sure. That's right. That's right. So, but I think it's a great solution to this, because it's been a difficult property over the years to see a project to come to fruition. So I think it's a good solution. That's what I've seen.
Do we have a motion for acceptance or denial on the table?
I recommend approval of case BOA 23.02 for the mixed-use development at 301 Magnolia.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, take a roll call vote. Ryan?
Aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all. Is there any meetings for next? We have
2 agenda items.
Okay, perfect. And is there any other business we need to discuss? Okay, thank you. Have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Okay, second?
Second.
All right, all in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.